Hello, left fielders. At LFI, you know our focus is on networking and education. Mark your calendars because we're going to have a full day of it dedicated to you, our limited partners, at the Best Ever Conference on April 9th in Salt Lake City. Left Field Investors is opening the BEC with Passive Investing Mastery, an event focused on passive investors. This will be where insightful content meets passionate LP investors. If you enjoyed BEC last year and the meetup in left field this year, imagine them both back to back. The Best Ever Conference isn't just any event. It's the premier conference for commercial real estate investors and operators. Your ticket to Passive Investing Mastery includes admission to the entire Best Ever Conference from April 9th through the 12th. Join us April 9th, where we will have a packed agenda with sessions focused on how to be a successful limited partner led by experienced LPs, top operators, and partners. Then immerse yourself in the full Best Ever Conference, where you will be surrounded by like-minded investors, operators, and industry experts for unparalleled opportunities for learning and networking. The best part, and there are so many, but the best part, you won't find a bigger discount on the regular ticket price than the one you get for being an infielder. That's more content for an exclusive lower price. Register for the event today at leftfieldinvestors.com/BEC, and we will see you at Passive Investing Mastery, presented by Left Field Investors at the BEC.
As far as non-accredited investors, one of our core principles in our investment club is to make it accessible to everybody, no matter what. So every deal that we propose in the club, it allows non-accredited investors. Hard stop. So, it must be inclusive for everybody for us to even propose it to our club members. And we do have plenty of accredited investors in our club as well. But we also have a lot of non-accredited investors, and we're there to serve them too.
Hello, left fielders. Welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast. Our community is focused on networking and education to help people invest passively and think differently. Let's go. I'm excited today to have Brian Davis with us. He is a real estate investor, personal finance writer, and founder of SparkRental with over 2 decades in the real estate and finance industries. Along with his wife and daughter, he spends most of the year living and traveling abroad. We'll get into that. He loves showing others how they too can create their ideal lives through real estate investing and lifestyle by design. He's also the host of the Live Off Rents podcast. Brian, welcome to the Passive Investing from Left Field podcast.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. And thanks for that glowing introduction. I feel like a superstar over here.
You are a superstar. We only get the best on Passive Investing from Left Field. So we appreciate you being here, Brian. First question I always ask is, tell us your journey. How did you get into real estate? How did you how did you start the community that we're going to talk about? And also, you were in Brazil and now you're somewhere else, South America, far away. So tell us that as well.
Right. Well, to answer that last question first, I am in Lima, Peru. As of just a couple months ago, we just moved here. But yeah, we were in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, for 4 years before that. Before even that, we were in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the UAE. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. My real estate investing journey has been even longer and more meandering. I fell into real estate investing totally by accident. I fell into my career in general by accident, like so many of us do. I graduated college, at 22. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My parents suggested that I just start doing informational interviews with people they knew and anyone else that I knew, just to get a sense for what people did with their careers and with their lives. Because when you grow up as a kid, you know about like 5 different careers, right? like police officer and firefighter and teacher and, maybe like business person, whatever that means.
Right.
So, but you really don't have an idea about what the average person does at like 11:37 on a Wednesday morning. So, I took their advice. I started doing informational interviews with their friends and with anyone else that I could, track down and get a hold of. And I did one with a friend of my stepdad's who owned a subprime mortgage lending company, which was all the rage back in 2003 when I graduated college. Yeah. And, so they hired me as an intern, and I ended up just by accident filling a need that they had of doing hard money loans that he and his partner were doing on the side of their nationwide subprime mortgage lending business. And, I kind of liked it. Again, this is like the early to mid aughts. People are making money hand over fist in real estate, by accident almost at that point. So there was a lot of flipping activity, a lot of BRRRR deals, people buying fixer uppers and renovating them, refinancing to keep as rentals. So I was doing those loans. I was working almost exclusively with real estate investors, watching them all make a bunch of money. And of course, my reaction is, I'm a smart guy. I can do this too, right? Like I can go out and buy rental properties, and if I have enough of them, then maybe I won't need to work anymore, right? This is before the FIRE movement. So I thought I was clever coming up with this idea, right? Right? As if I was the first person to ever come up with this idea. But it doesn't mean it was a bad idea. I mean, it's a good idea. It didn't work out that way for me. I went out and I overpaid for all these properties. I didn't know how to forecast cash flow properly. I didn't really know how to renovate these properties properly. So when 2008 hit, I had bought most of those properties. I bought, I don't know, somewhere in the low teens, 13, 14, 15 properties in like mostly 2006 to 2008. So when the crash hit, I got completely annihilated by it. I was in way over my head. And, to make matters worse, all of my work for a hard money lender, doing these hard money loans, that all dried up too, because no one's flipping houses anymore all of a sudden, right? No one's doing BRRRR deals. So I had to go find a totally new career, which I did in the online space, serving landlords and real estate investors. Took a job and got to learn online marketing and, what online business is all about. And in 2016, I split off with a former colleague and we started SparkRental. And that's a whole nother conversation, but that's how I got into real estate in the first place.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll get into SparkRental as well. But I want to start with, 8 years, and this isn't the real estate part, but this is the life part, right? Which is why we're all doing this. 3 locations in 8 years, 3 different languages, right? 3 different parts of the world. I guess Brazil and Peru are kind of in the same area, but why did you decide to go to Abu Dhabi and start this international traveling, living thing that you guys are doing?
Yeah, so I've always had some wanderlust. I've always been an avid traveler. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she saw how much I loved traveling and how I was feeling that itch to move and see more of the world. So she was a school counselor at the time. She still is. She reached out to a person that we knew who worked for international schools. I think that person was in Shanghai at the time. And, asked her, how do I do this? How did you do it? What's the process for getting hired by international schools? And she did this as kind of a surprise for me. And then one day said, Brian, I've signed up for this international school recruiting agency. And in 6 weeks from now, we're going up to Boston for a job fair for international schools. And let's go have an adventure and move across the world. And I said, that's awesome. Let's do it.
Wow.
I was still working for another online business at the time. It was 100% remote. So, I was all for it. So that's how that first came about. At that job fair, she got a series of offers from different schools. And the one that we ended up being most intrigued by was the one in Abu Dhabi. So, within a day of going to this job fair, while we're at the fair, she took the job. And, a few months later, we were living on the other side of the world.
That's incredible. I also lived on the other side of the world for a little bit, but it was Germany, it was Europe, it was normal. I think going to these really kind of, at least for Americans, more exotic, far-flung places takes a lot of courage. So how does that work with what you're doing now, that you're doing real estate? Is it any different than living in Columbus, Ohio, and buying, investing in real estate syndications? Obviously Peru has all the things you need. Is there anything that you feel you don't get, or anything? Are you also looking at international opportunities because you're more familiar with that? Can you talk a little bit about how the location independence has affected your investing?
Absolutely. So I ended up getting rid of most of my rental properties when we were living in Abu Dhabi. It was just too much work. Even having a property manager, you still need to manage the manager. And a lot of those properties were lower end rental properties, which come with a ton of headaches, way more hassles than say, A or even B class properties. And, the sad reality is that it's really hard to find good property managers who are willing to manage bad properties and lower end properties because it's less money and more work for them. So good property managers tend just not to do it, right? they just refuse to work in those areas. So you end up stuck with bad property managers. And, that all just came to a head when we were overseas. When I was living in Baltimore, I was more hands-on in managing the manager and being more involved in some of the property management. But, that was kind of a crutch, right? The fact that I happened to live in the same city and I ended up putting in all this work. So they weren't really passive investment, or they weren't passive. It wasn't passive income at that point, right? If I'm so involved. So, again, that came to a head when we were in Abu Dhabi. And, I still loved real estate, though. I still wanted to invest in real estate. So I started looking into other ways that I could invest in real estate. Eventually, I came to real estate syndications and proper passive investments. But this all kind of coincided with a meandering journey that we had with SparkRental. We were selling a course on real estate investing and trying to reach financial independence with real estate investments. And it was only selling okay. And we thought it was a great course. So we were trying to figure out, why is it only selling okay? What is it that people want that we're not doing? And the feedback we kept getting, or the question that we kept getting from students or from would-be students who were kind of interested but on the fence is, can I just invest money with you guys? I don't really want a part-time job as a real estate investor and as a landlord. I want to diversify my portfolio to include real estate, but I don't want all the headaches and the hassles that come along with trying to learn how to find deals and lining up financing and hassling with contractors and tenants and property managers and all that stuff. And, we kept saying no for a little while. And then we were like, well, what if we did partner with a boots on the ground, active real estate investor and offered a joint investment project for some of our students. So we tried that with a couple single family homes. And it worked to the extent that we earned positive returns, but it didn't work in the sense of it was a lot of work and not much money for us.
Right.
So, but there was interest in it. And, so as a proof of concepts of an investment club and that kind of interest, that was there. So we went back to the drawing board, and this was around the time that I had discovered real estate syndications. So, I went to my partner and I said, hey, what if instead of active real estate investments, which are just, again, it's too much work and not enough money. What if instead we did truly passive investments, opened it up to our students, so we did that at first. We opened it just up to our course students. And then later, after talking to an attorney, we discovered that it was legal for us to open it up to the general public. So we did. But we did a pilot deal and saw how that went, gauged the interest and, how smooth the process was. It went well. So we opened up this real estate investment club and have been doing a deal, at least one deal a month ever since.
And when you say investment club, what is that exactly? How do people, can you just talk about the process? Because I think it's really unique. And if you can also talk about the non-accredited aspect of it, because that is even more unique and really, I really like that aspect of it. So if you can just kind of talk about SparkRental, your investment club, and what you guys do, that would be great.
Yeah. So, it's funny. It seems like every sponsor out there tells you that they have an investment club and you join our investment club. It's a marketing gimmick, right?
Yeah.
So we have an actual investment club with members who vet deals together every month. We bring the sponsor on and we grow them, in real time on video calls. And, it is a true club in the sense that my partner and I are not selling securities. We don't get a cut of any of the money that is raised or pooled together to invest in these syndication deals. We only make money on a flat membership fee for the club that we charge. So the way it works is our club members get an email every time we see a deal that we think is a good fit for our club members. We schedule a meeting with the sponsor, a video call, and invite all of our club members to join us on that call with the sponsor to hear about the deal, vet it together, ask them hard questions. And then we open that deal up to our club members and say anyone who wants to invest in this deal can do so with a minimum of $5,000 per person, with the goal of, with our combined resources, we hit the minimum investment of 50 grand, 75 grand, 100 grand, whatever it is for that syndication deal. So each person can invest with a much smaller amount. And, I realize $5,000 is not trivial. It's not chump change, but it's also not 100 grand, right? It's much easier for the average person to be able to do. And, even for people with plenty of money, it's nice to be able to spread smaller amounts among a lot more deals to diversify, spread your money and your risk, expose yourself to different sponsors, different markets, different asset classes. And as far as non-accredited investors, one of our core principles in our investment club is to make it accessible to everybody, no matter what. So every deal that we propose in the club, it allows non-accredited investors. Hard stop. So, it must be inclusive for everybody for us to even propose it to our club members. And we do have plenty of accredited investors in our club as well. But we also have a lot of non-accredited investors, and we're there to serve them too.
And I love that. As you know, a lot of what you do kind of is similar to what we're doing at Left Field Investors, where we're also, providing some deal flow. And we like to make sure that our non-accredited members also have access to these deals. But I really like that you're just focused on, hey, anyone can join the club, but we're just going to go after those deals that are accessible to everyone. So can you talk about how the actual, how do you do the minimums? You get $5,000 minimums. We do the same through TribeVest. And I think that's one of the things that you do as well. But can you talk about how that works, the $5,000 minimum? And then do you get better terms, or are you just trying to get to the minimum for the deal so that you can actually invest?
Yeah. So when we first opened the club, we were just trying to hit that minimum, right? Because we didn't have that many members. As the club has grown, obviously the combined amounts that we're investing in these deals has also grown. So, whereas when we first started, we're trying to hit 50 grand, 75 grand, 100 grand, to hit that minimum. The last deal we did, we invested close to 250 grand in that, and we keep growing every month. So we're starting to get to that point where we can start thinking about negotiating better terms, preferential term, whether that's a higher higher preferred return on the deal, a better profit split on it. We're getting to that point now where we can start thinking about that and start approaching sponsors about that, and potentially partnering up with people like Left Field Investors or others who are doing something similar in order to hit that $500,000 or $1 million that might be required to get those better returns for our members. So yeah, that's something that's on the table now that wasn't on the table a year ago, simply because our club has grown.
And the $5,000 minimum, you do that through everyone invests in the same LLC. Is that through TribeVest, or you do that some other way? Yeah,
so we create an LLC for each deal. Each member who wants to participate in that deal, they let us know how much they want to invest. We list them as a member within the LLC, so they're a partial owner of the LLC. The LLC invests as a single entity, as a single non-accredited investor in the syndication deal. So the sponsor only has to deal with one person, me or my partner, Denny. We have already established the relationship with those sponsors. I mean, that's part of the service that we're providing in our club is we go out and we form relationships with all these sponsors, get on their email lists, fulfill the requirements to count as a non-accredited investor with them, someone who they have a pre-existing relationship with. So, each person contributes their portion, whether it's 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand, whatever they want to invest in that particular deal. We have used TribeVest to date as the platform for collecting the funds and uploading all of the legal documents, doing votes. I'm not sure if we will continue using them or not, but we have used TribeVest up to this point for all of these deals, just to try to maintain that transparency with all of our members, make sure everyone has access to the banking, for example, in real time. Everyone has access to all of the legal documents at any time and can log in at any point and just see how it's performing.
Yeah, that's excellent. We've used TribeVest as well for a lot of our open tribes, and it certainly does help the process. So I've seen lately that some operators that do the 506B non-accredited type deals, they're supposed to require a previous relationship, right? So are you finding that they're allowing that relationship to be just with you as the manager of the LLC, or are they requiring it to be for every single different individual who invests in the LLC? Because part of the confusion, part of the complication is every operator sees it differently, or let me rephrase that, every operator's attorneys view it differently.
Yeah. So most sponsors who we've worked with, they have no problem with accepting money from our LLC, having a previous or a pre-existing relationship established with myself and my co-founder, Denny. A couple have attorneys who don't feel as comfortable with that and have recommended that they form pre-existing relationships with every single member who's going to be listed on an LLC, which is it's not super practical for us as a club, depending on what their requirements are for establishing a relationship, right? So far, we have only worked with sponsors who, have no problem with establishing the relationship with Denny and myself first, and then accepting money from our joint LLC. We've had a couple sponsors who have felt less comfortable with that, and we're trying to work with them to find a way to make them feel more comfortable about it. For example, we talked to a sponsor last week who they proposed coming on and speaking, giving a little presentation to our club, and having filling their checkbox that way, and then welcoming on our club members, as partial fractional owners in an LLC to then invest with them. So yeah, it's just sponsor by sponsor. But again, most sponsors are fine with it.
Yeah, that's good. I know we've talked about this, that the non-accredited thing, it kind of drives me crazy, because just because you have a bunch of money, it doesn't mean you're going to be a better investor. And just because you establish a relationship with an operator doesn't mean you're going to be a better investor either, especially when most of these, they establish the relationship to check the box, because everyone in the industry kind of thinks this is silly the way they're requiring us to do it. And hopefully changes are coming. But I want to also get into the difficulty or the challenges of finding, it's hard to find quality operators with deals you want to invest in. That's already complicated. Now, you're screening out 80% or more of the operators because you're just looking for those that have 506Bs that allow non-accredited, which I admire, and I really like that strategy. But how do you do it? How do you find quality operators with quality deals that fit that mold with enough deal flow to make sure that your community gets some diversification? I've heard you talk on other podcasts, you diversify by, market, operator, asset class. So how do you do all of that with this limitation that you've put on yourself? And I don't mean that in a bad way. Again, I admire that you're doing this, but it's a challenge. I know it's a challenge. So can you talk about that, how you overcome that challenge and how you find these quality operators?
It is a challenge. And especially when we first started, before we really knew that many operators, that was particularly a challenge, because when we would ask people, who do you like in this industry? Who do you find the most trustworthy and reputable? A lot of the names that get rattled off right off the bat are people who only allow accredited investors, right? So, some of those most famous established operators only work with accredited investors. So we've had to go in and just network the hell out of it, basically. But that's how we've approached it, is really word of mouth. We every time we talk to a sponsor, the last question that we always ask them is, hey, who else do you like in this space? In this industry, who have you invested with as an LP, for example? Who have you worked with as a co-sponsor? Who have you worked with in some capacity in the past that you really like and trust as an investor? And with a caveat that we do want to hear about the accredited only sponsors too, but we're particularly interested in sponsors who allow non-accredited investors. And that has been a great way to network with sponsors. It's just word of mouth from other sponsors, especially those who, other sponsors have invested with themselves as an LP. So that's the main way that we have found sponsors. And that's been pretty effective for us. But it does require work in networking, right? I mean, we're constantly jumping on calls with new sponsors, trying to get a sense for their track record, their performance, and just how they think about raising capital and how they treat their LPs, their transparency, their communication, all that stuff. So it's work.
Yeah, that's great. And so it's a fine line, right? The question I'm going to ask is, how do you evaluate or how do you vet a sponsor, right? That's one of the most important things. It's the thing that everybody always asks. Now, you do it similar to ours. You have a community. You're vetting the sponsor for yourself, and then you're determining if you want to, put them in front of the community. But in the end, it's the investor who needs to vet them. And that's why we call, we're trying to turn community into a verb at Left Field Investors, where you community the deal, you community the operator. And that means the community works together to determine if it's, something you want to move forward or not. So what are you looking at when you're trying to find sponsors? Because I think it would be easy to say, oh, you accept non-accredited, let's have you present, right? And I know that you go beyond that. So how do you vet the sponsor? What are some questions that you ask? And then how does your community add to that with their vetting once the deal is proposed?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a complicated question with an equally complicated answer. So, the easiest answer to that is looking at their track record, right? What have they done in the past? How have their deals performed? How many deals have they done? How long have they been doing this? We like to see investors who have been through a couple market cycles, right? As someone who was a real estate investor back in 2008, like I talked about earlier, I love to see real estate investors who did live through the financial crisis and the housing collapse in 2008. But yeah, you want to see someone who's been through multiple cycles, who knows that real estate is not just an elevator that only goes up, right? So track record is probably the simplest answer to that question. We also ask about what kind of risks they see in the market, how they are mitigating those risks. That's always an interesting question to ask sponsors, because you ask 10 sponsors that question, you'll get 10 different answers. And we want to see how thoughtful are their answers to that question, because there are always risks out there. And the example I give is that nowadays everyone's talking about interest rate risk, right? But really, the time to have been talking about interest rate risk was 2 years ago, when no one was talking about it.
Yes.
But it was a very real risk. Interest rates aren't always low, despite what most of this century has dictated. So yeah, trying to analyze their attitudes towards risk and how conservatively they approach risk. We try to get a sense for how conservative their underwriting is. We like to look at some of their past deals and try to look at some of their underwriting assumptions. Are they assuming a low exit cap rate on these deals? Are they assuming rapid rent growth in that market? Are they doing a sensitivity analysis that shows how the returns will vary based on different exit cap rates, different rent growth, and how comfortable do we feel with some of those assumptions and some of those numbers? These are all the kinds of questions that we ask people. In a perfect world, we would love to speak with past LPs that have invested with them. That's not always practical for us to do, given the number of sponsors that we talk to. But then, to your point about crowdsourcing the vetting of these sponsors and these deals, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to us to bring on the sponsor directly in front of our audience, so that everyone is participating in this together. It's not us. We never want to be in the position where people think that we're vetting deals or vetting sponsors for them, even though we try to assist as much as we can with that. We don't want to be responsible for that, right?
Right.
But that's how we end up having great conversations as a community, right? A lot of times our community members will ask questions that didn't occur to us to ask, or they might have specialized knowledge about either the market or the type of investment that we don't have. We had a deal a few months back that was outside of, I think it was Dallas. And, I don't know anything about the Dallas market. I've never been there. I've never lived there. But one of our community members lives 5 minutes down the road from the building, the property. That was a multifamily property where we were considering investing. So she was able to tell us firsthand, I know this property. I drive past it, several times a week. I know that there is a lot of demand for, higher end rental housing in this suburb, which is what this property was offering. And, she basically said, this is a good deal. Let's do it, based on her personal knowledge of that neighborhood, which,
Wow.
I never would have known that, if it were just me investing by myself. So, the community aspect is huge.
Yeah, and that's the power of community. Right now, you have a bunch of people looking at it, and that's awesome. Now you have more confidence, and then it could also go the other way where somebody says, "Oh man, you don't want anything to do with that," and that's saving you from a loss potentially is also positive. So the power of the community is really key for what you're doing and for what we're doing at Left Field Investors as well. So when you're presenting these sponsors, then how does the evaluation of the deal happen inside the club? Are members, like you mentioned, they were asking questions like that, but are they also digging into the financials? Are you guys all talking about that? Do you have the presenter, the sponsor present the deal and then you guys talk separately later? We have some of our conversations in the forum. I'm just trying to get a feel for how club members, how active they are in their passive investing before you sign on to a deal.
Yeah. So the way that works in our club is we'll schedule a meeting with the sponsor. We'll send out an email to all of our club members with the investment summary deck. And if there's a video, like a webinar presenting the deal, we send that out too. If we have access to other information, like the sponsor's current track record, we send that out. So we try to give them as much information as possible before the meeting with the sponsor, so they do have access to any underwriting information that's in the summary deck, the investment deck. They have that before the meeting with the sponsor. In the meeting with the sponsor, it's more informal. We're not asking them to deliver the same webinar that they probably already recorded and sent out to us. It's more of a Q&A. So we usually have them give like a 5-minute overview of the deal, just explaining what it is, what they like about it. And then we open it up to the group to ask the sponsor questions directly. I always go into these meetings with 10, 15 questions of my own, to either help spur conversation or if the questions dry up, to step in and keep asking questions and try to get to the heart of whether it's a good deal. And then once the sponsor gets off of the call, then the rest of us stay on the call and keep discussing the deal, talking about the pros and cons, the risks and rewards, how comfortable we feel with it. And then we give everyone a deadline. Please let us know by this date if you want to proceed and invest in this deal together. And that's how it works.
That's great. And so what asset classes are you looking for, or your community interested in now? We're in uncertain economic times, I think is the big key word here, right? That interest rates have risen very fast, unexpectedly. Insurance rates are pretty high. There's just a lot of uncertainty in the economy. So are there any asset classes that you and or your community are thinking, hey man, if we can just find a quality operator that accepts non-accredited in this asset class or in this market, is there any ideas on that?
Yeah, a core value of our club is diversification. So we want to be proposing deals in our club in as many different asset classes as possible and as many different markets as possible and with as many different sponsors as possible. So, multifamily is kind of the bread and butter of real estate syndication deals, as you know. But we've done deals with industrial real estate. We've done deals with retail properties, with mobile home parks. Right now, we are evaluating a deal. We just proposed a deal yesterday. That's a self-storage deal. It's an expansion project where the sponsor, they own 2 facilities already, and they're building new units on those properties. So, yeah, I mean, we're trying to just provide as many different types of deals as we can, knowing that our club members each have different goals and different likes, that they want to invest in. So we want to try to make as many different types of deals as possible available to our members. I realize that was a little bit of a wishy-washy answer. I've been interested in self-storage for a little while, although I worry that there was a little bit too much of a spike in the pandemic, and too many people got into it. Maybe there was too much construction. But I like the idea of self-storage as a recession-resilient asset class. But I think the jury's still out on what kind of correction we might see in that market. Mobile home parks tend to do well in most economies. So is there a specific type of property that I am super jazzed about at this exact moment? Not necessarily. I want to see deals that are just conservatively underwritten, low interest rate debt, low LTV loans. We like to see, deals that are cash flowing well already, and will start paying distributions very, very soon. Just makes everyone feel a little bit more comfortable with the risk on that. Even though I certainly understand that with projects like new construction, you're not going to see distributions for a few years.
Right.
So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does. It does. It's a difficult question for someone like you and like me who want to diversify so much by asset class that, maybe, I love self-storage, but, I want to make sure I'm diversified. So I can't really answer that question in a way that makes sense. So yeah, I totally get it. So, we haven't really talked about this yet, and we're coming up on time, but I do want to touch on kind of the lifestyle that you've chosen. You've designed this lifestyle that fits your family's needs and what you guys want to do and what you're available to do or to be able to do. So just talk a little bit about the advantages of real estate, specifically investing in these syndications for real estate, and how that allows you, you need financial freedom for that to do the things that you want to do. So can you just talk about how real estate has allowed you, and I think it's part of it, has allowed some of this, the lifestyle that you have and designing a lifestyle based on what you want to do and making sure your finances allow you to do that. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
It does. And there's a little bit of a virtuous cycle with that where, I have been able to take more risks both in my career and in my investments because of what my wife does work-wise. So, as a school counselor, she does not have a high salary, but working for international schools, she gets amazing benefits. We get free housing. We get paid flights home to the US every year. We get full health coverage for our entire family. We get full tuition for our daughter at some of the best schools in the world. So we aim to live entirely on my wife's income and benefits and to save and invest all of my income. So that frees me to pursue a career, with no floor, right? There's no income floor with owning your own business, but there's no ceiling either. So my wife has a career with a solid floor, but a relatively low ceiling. I have, that frees me up to have a career with no floor, but an unlimited ceiling. So that's freed me up to take some risks, starting an online business, investing in real estate syndications, investing in real estate crowdfunding investments. And it has living overseas has made me drawn towards passive real estate investments like syndications, like crowdfunding. And maybe if I were living in the US, maybe I never would have been pushed to learn more about these sorts of passive real estate investments. Maybe I would have stuck with rental properties, right? Even though, I didn't love all the work involved and the headaches and hassles of dealing with contractors and tenants and city inspectors and all that stuff. So being overseas has helped in many ways. One of those just being motivating me to branch away from what I knew and into more passive forms of investment. But we would never be able to live the lifestyle that we want to live on just my wife's income if we were living in the US. But we can live a pretty comfortable lifestyle living on just her income and benefits living overseas. So there's this virtual cycle there. And because we can invest in some of those investments, we earn the higher returns, on these real estate syndications. I mean, I have almost no bonds in my investment portfolio because I have been able to invest in real estate as a replacement for bonds. And if we had a certified financial planner on here, they might scoff at that and say, "Oh, well, that's high risk." But I mean, I would argue that bonds have their own set of risks, right? I mean, they have inflation risk, which real estate doesn't really have. Bonds have their own interest rate risk. If interest rates go up, the value of your existing bonds drop. But real estate does serve a lot of those same roles in your portfolio as bonds, diversification from the stock market, ongoing passive income. So, it has enabled us to take some of those risks and then enjoy the rewards of those higher risks.
Yeah. And, I think I'm trying to more and more step back and say, yeah, let's enjoy the rewards because we're all working really hard. And, if you structure everything correctly, you want to be able to enjoy the rewards as you go, not just store it all up at the end, which I think a lot of people that are just in the Wall Street mentality and what we call right field, they're just saying, I just got to hold on to retirement and then everything will be great. Well, you got a whole life to live to get there. So I love what you're doing and I love how you explained it. Last question I always ask is, what is a great podcast that you listen to? You cannot use Live Off Rent's podcast because that's already going to be in the show notes. So give us something else that you like to listen to.
All right. Well, I'll give you a couple of different types. So as a business podcast, and particularly an online business podcast, check out the Mind Your Business podcast with James Wedmore. For any online business owners out there, entrepreneurs. For real estate investing podcasts, check out The Conscious Investor with Julie Holly or How to Scale Commercial Real Estate with Sam Wilson. Those are both great podcasts for real estate investors. And for political podcasts, I like Left, Right, and Center by KCRW, which is an NPR channel. But they have a center and they have someone representing the right and they have someone representing the left, and you have a thought-provoking conversation each week from across the political spectrum, which is we all need more of that, right? And less the talking points and sitting in your own echo chamber and having your own beliefs just fed back to you.
Yeah. Hey, those are great recommendations. Thank you. I'm definitely going to check a few of those out. Last thing is, if listeners want to get in touch with you, learn more about SparkRental, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So, obviously you can come to our website, SparkRental.com. You'll see our co-investing club right there. And we also have a ton of other free resources like real estate investing calculators and interactive maps across the country. You can reach out to me personally over email. It's just brian@sparkrental.com. You can connect with us on social media. We have a huge Facebook group with like 46,000 real estate investors in there. We're very active on social. So yeah, reach out anytime. I'm here. It's not like I have a VA answering my emails. Reach out and say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Brian. We're really excited about, kind of getting to know you guys a little bit better. And we talked about this, Left Field Investors and SparkRental. We're not competitors. We're going to work together to help all LPs be better investors. And however we can work together to do that, I know you're committed to it. And so is our team. So we thank you for that. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Tim, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
There was a lot of good stuff in that episode with Brian. Really appreciate him coming on. And we are trying to work more with Spark Rentals because we have the same mission, which is to educate, provide a network, and provide deal flow for LP investors. They concentrate a little bit more on non-accredited. We try to concentrate on everybody, but sometimes that having a focus is good, and that's what they have. So Brian was talking about how he got into real estate kind of by accident. That's almost everybody's story, it seems like. And then just the living overseas and what real estate allows you to do. I know he was doing it with his online business, but that was also real estate related. But it's just such an easy way to be able to live your life and have real estate support it. And, he said when he was an active real estate investor, one of the things it really hit me, he said, it's hard to find good property managers for bad properties. And boy, did I learn that lesson when I was in my active investing world. So that's a really great nugget for any of the active investors out there. Core principle of Spark is they want the investments to be accessible to everybody, and that's why they focus on non-accredited, which I think that's fantastic. And that's really one of the reasons that LFI is so interested in working together with them, is because they are really focused on that part of the community. And we have a lot of non-accredited investors, and we want to serve them properly. So we're going to work with Spark on that. And then a couple of things he said when he's talking to GPs and they're trying to find these non-accredited operators and deals, because it's hard. We spend a lot of time looking for that ourselves. They ask the GPs who other good GPs are, and it sounds logical, but sometimes you're afraid to ask because, well, they might be competitors. But what I've found in real estate, although it's a very competitive place, you have people willing to work together, right? Spark and LFI, we could just as easily be competitors, but we've decided, no, we want to be partners. And a lot of the operators are the same way. So ask them, who are they investing with? Who do they see that's good in the market? They know the market better than anyone, and they should be willing to share that with you. And another thing I like that Brian said, the time to talk about interest rates was a couple years ago, right? Of course, we can still talk about them and figure out what's happening, but man, if we were having the same discussions now that we were a couple years ago, that would have been helpful. Now, you're in a different mindset then, and you think, well, interest rates can never go up that far that fast. But hey, they did, so we should have been talking about it. And lastly, talking about lifestyle by design and how he hasn't really figured out, and I really like his strategy where his wife kind of anchors the basic income that they need with her job, with the benefits, and supports that international lifestyle. And that allows the other spouse, which is Brian in this case, to really take some risk where he otherwise might not. Now, I would argue that real estate is probably less risky than throw it in the stock market anyway, but that's my personal opinion. But the way that he set it up is so they always have that floor, that base is covered, and then everything he does is gravy. And that's a great way to set it up. It's a great way to use real estate. It's a great way to figure out your financial freedom. Now, everybody's going to do that a little bit differently, but I was just intrigued by how he did it. So great talking to Brian. Really interested to see how the partnerships that we're working on and how we're going to help each other, left field investors and SparkRental, moving forward. So stay tuned for that. That's all we have for this time. We'll catch you next time in the left field.